Good morning. My name is Thomas Reutman. I'm a hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterward through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there's no sign-in sheet, so if you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. If you do not have that with you, please contact the Bureau of Urban Forestry at urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. This public hearing is being held to consider 5 items. First, we'll take public comment for if there's any matters that are within the department's jurisdiction that weren't on today's agenda. Then the 5 items are hearing order 205932 for 100 Cole Street for an appeal for a fine for illegal pruning of one street tree. Hearing order 205933 at 2232 Ulloa Street to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal pruning of one street tree. Hearing order number 205934 for 100 Dorado Street to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal removal of one street tree. And hearing order 205935 for 484 9th Avenue to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal removal of one street tree. My job as hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided us contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows for the 5 cases. I'll ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner, applicant, or appellant to speak. Then any members of the public or witness who wants to speak. And then the department, if the department would like to address any comments. And then if I feel it's warranted, I will allow an opportunity for further clarification by the appellant. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you're a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom's raise your hand feature to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you've dialed in by phone, raise your hand by pressing *9, and when told you are being unmuted, press *6 to unmute yourself before speaking. When it's your turn to speak, I will recognize you. Again, if you'd like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We'll now begin the hearing. Let's start with matters in the Public Works purview. Is there anyone to speak on any matters besides the hearing orders?
Mr. Clip has his hand raised. Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Okay, Mr. Clip, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Since apparently I'm the only one here, and I have another meeting at 10:30, I'm just going to say generally that I would support issuance of the full fines that are proposed here. First of all, because I think as everyone at Public Works knows, we do not have enough money to plant trees to keep up with what our urban forest plan calls for. We don't even have enough money to plant trees to keep up with the rate of removal. And as a result of that, our urban canopy continues to suffer and decline at a time that we really can least afford for that to happen. So I'll just make a general public comment in support of issuing the full fines that are proposed on this agenda. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted, but thank you for that, Josh. Take that into consideration. Is there any other person in the call or the Zoom that has public comment? Hearing none, we'll start running through let me just check the chat bar and make sure there's no messages there. I don't see anything. Okay, I think we'll start the hearing, and I'll let the buff start the presentation of the first item.
Good morning. Welcome to the January 19th, 2022 administrative hearing. And first, we're going to give a short presentation for the basis for these fines. So to explain why we issue fines, why it's harmful for trees, why it's harmful for the urban canopy, why it's illegal. So Public Works Code, Article 16 is the Urban Forestry Ordinance. And Section 808 covers the protection of trees and landscape material. So injury or destruction to trees is prohibited. And then we define injury and destruction. So people say they didn't mean to, but that's, intentional versus unintentional. So it's intentional or maliciously, or through gross negligence, injure or destroy a street tree. So when you say you didn't mean to, but you did XYZ to a tree without maybe calling the city or just checking, is a tree protected with a quick Google search, you'll probably find that the first answer is yes, you need a permit. Yes, you should call. Here's the Public Works phone number. So that's gross negligence. Even if you didn't mean to, you didn't do your best to make sure you're following the rules. So planting and removal of street trees is covered in Section 806. And this basically states that a permit is required to remove a tree, a protected tree. That's street trees and significant trees. So if the department grants a tree removal permit, it shall require that a tree or trees of equivalent replacement value to the one removed be planted in place of a removed tree or imposed in an lieu fee. So if you've illegally removed a tree and it cannot be replanted, there's a possibility that you will receive not only the fine, but an in lieu fee for the loss of that tree. So, you must apply for a tree removal permit because we have city staff that determine whether or not the tree can be removed. The public is not necessarily qualified to make that decision. We are the organization that has the jurisdiction over the street trees, and the public has granted us the authority to issue a permit. That's why you call the city if you need to remove a tree. So we don't have a tree protection case here, but if anybody is curious, tree protection is required if excavation, construction, or street work is planned within the drip line of a significant tree, a landmark tree, or a tree on any street or any publicly owned property, so street trees, they shall be adequately protected. And we will always send tree protection specs to anybody who has a tree on site for any construction project that comes across us. So we have construction triggers, and if a person is required to plant a tree, we'll automatically send them the tree protection spec. So if any construction work results in the injury or damage to such trees, the responsible parties may be subject to penalties. We can also issue a fine for failure to protect a tree. So a lot of times people say, like, oh, we didn't touch the tree. Well, failing to protect the tree, we can't tell if you've driven over the drip line, because there are things underground you can't see. So that's basically warrants a fine. So we have to define injury, and injure or injury shall mean any act which harms or damages a tree. So this is any act. It's not limited to, including but not limited to, impact, cutting, carving, painting, transplanting. So knocking over, so that's kind of under the gross negligence, like you backed over a tree. It includes and is not limited to the following: an injurious attachment of any rope. So sometimes we see people girdling trees. Wire, nail, advertising posters, so you don't nail your own no parking signs onto trees. Or any other contrivance to any tree or subject to the provisions of this article. And then mainly in this case, it's pruning, which in and of itself will kill or cause a tree to decline, severing of all or any part of the tree. So this is where people will say, like, well, the tree grew back, right? But part of why it's so harmful is because every time you remove all those leaves from a tree, it has to tap into its reservoir of energy to grow, and that causes long-term decline. That's kind of like long-term starvation or a long-time sleep deprivation for a human. It will eventually shorten your lifespan. So the International Society of Arboriculture, that's the regulating body for all things having to do with trees. So do not remove, and that's international, and they have ANSI standards through the American National Standards Institute. So do not remove more than 25% of the tree, can't be each year. Do not remove more than 25% of the foliage on a branch or limb. So it stresses the tree and produces weakly attached branches because it causes a sprout, and those sprouts aren't really attached very well because they don't put on the wood at the same rate as the branch is attached to. And so don't cut back a branch that is less than 1/3 or half the main branch. So you'll see in these cases, like topping, that does the opposite of removing a branch that is less than 1/3 or half. It's important to selectively remove branches throughout the tree. And the pruning standards tell you what branches to remove. So if you follow the pruning standards and ISA standard, you'll know which branches to remove, and it's not just, I need to thin the tree because it's too dense. That's arbitrary. Or it's too tall, and height isn't a hazard when it comes to trees. It's really about branch attachment. So this is like an example of topping. And you're cutting the terminal branch to a stump, or a lateral branch that's not large enough to assume the terminal role. So it's not an acceptable way to reduce canopy. That's exactly why we say, like, you have to follow tree pruning standards, because there are ways to do this. So there's a reduction, but we want people to ask permission if they're going to reduce the tree. We need to analyze why. And this is an example of that sprouting. Like I said, people always send us these photos. Look, the tree is coming back. This constantly taps into those emergency starches and energy that the tree has, and that shortens your lifespan. That's like I said, constantly going into starvation mode, or constantly getting a lack of sleep. Like, it shortens a human's lifespan. This works in the same way. You're taking away the food and the resources for the tree, and it has to tap into its own reservoir. That is very harmful in the long term. And so, the tree had died because it didn't have enough. This is all it could muster. Like, it didn't have enough starches to keep generating a full canopy, and it ended up dying. And people say their limbs fall. So I got to top the tree, but like this is exactly what happens if you produce limbs that fall even more frequently, because these are all those little branches and sprouts that sprouted up at a topping cut. And now they've grown and they're weakly attached, like I said, because the wood didn't grow at the same rate, or it grows at a weird angle. So, and it causes decay. Those topping cuts are large, and in those large cuts, the tree can't like close the gap. And so that causes, the tree can't seal off the wound, and that causes decay. And so sometimes you see trees fall because they've been topped. And so you're gonna, you see pollarded trees. We have a case here where one of the trees looks like they had attempted to pollard it. But again, some of these trees that have been pollarded are specially bred to be pollarded. And even in pollarded trees, we're seeing that their lifespan is significantly shorter. So just because, London plane trees here on the left can handle it, doesn't necessarily mean it's the best practice. We're also trying to get away from pollarding in the city. But these two things are not the same. And we get a lot of complaints about high voltage lines. Just ask us, is that a high voltage line? Call PG&E. They're the ones that regulate the high voltage lines. If it's not an emergency, it's likely fine if your tree touches these wires. And then just a little about street tree SF. People talked a lot about how they're waiting for us to, they called us, like they didn't get the answer they wanted. When we get a service request that says like, I want my tree pruned, we always fill in with information that says, you have to wait your turn. And this is where you can get more information. So, you do have to follow up with that 3-on-1 call, because it normally has our notes that says like, this is why we are not coming. And the reason we're not coming is because all the trees have been laid out in this priority list. And all of the red areas are areas where the trees are large. They need pruning because larger trees generally have, they're more mature and they have more pruning needs to reduce end weight. And so this is why we're not coming to prune your tree sometimes. Out in the sunset, you have a low amount of tree canopy, so that drives the numbers. But we have pruned a lot of our trees. So at least 30,000 of them, I think the numbers have grown for sure since this PowerPoint was written. But it doesn't feel like that when you're waiting for your own tree, but remember that you're one in 125,000 trees. And again, this is what drives our priorities. It's trees that pose a real safety risk. And so your safety risk is not your perceived safety risk. It's what the city deems to be a safety risk. Why? Because city inspectors are ISA certified arborists, and we're all tree risk assessment qualified. So please call a professional. Do not take things into your own hands. Risk is perceived, and then there's real risk. So, we always hang these door tags when we do street tree SF when we're about to do a grid. And so finally, there is a street, sorry about the white text on top, might have been a formatting issue here, but there is a street tree care class that after all is said and done with the decision, you attend the class and pay this fee and can get the fine further reduced. Only certain cases are eligible for the street tree care class, so we can discuss which ones are eligible. And then, so I'll just go into the first case. So I hope that explains the basis for why we issued these fines. And if anybody has any technical questions, they can always email us. We can just go into nitty-gritty detail with the biomechanics of trees and why they need proper pruning if people just still don't agree. So order number 205932, 100 Cole Street. And this is to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for the illegal pruning of one street tree adjacent to 100 Cole. And the fine levied for the illegal pruning is 2230. And Cerise, did we get any more attendees?
Yes, we do have one attendee.
Okay. Okay, so this is The 2020 photo, and it's a hackberry tree, so they do grow fast. So it can feel unruly sometimes, but like I said, there's a proper way to prune trees. And so it did grow out, even though we did send, and it does obviously need some pruning. But again, we've outlined what a safety is, what a safety pruning is, and what is routine pruning. And routine pruning, it can wait, even if you feel impatient. There's safety pruning and there's routine pruning. And, you know, that's what the 3-in-1 app, again, is for. Like, yes, hey, you know, I'm concerned about the stop sign being blocked. Call us. We can make that determination. Again, it's the city's tree. It's our responsibility. You know, the homeowner doesn't need to take the responsibility and assume the responsibility of this tree maintenance. So we did send a warning letter for this tree in 2018. You can see that there's actual topping cuts. You know, it doesn't have those wounds, not healed, those knuckles that you see in Florida trees. We sent a warning letter and we checked and the addresses are the same. You know, for all intents and purposes, the owner should have received this letter because we send the fines to the same letter that we send this warning letter to. And we did receive an appeal. So then we go by in 2021, actually, someone had reported this to us, so we weren't looking for it. And, you know, you can see that they removed all the canopy of this tree again after the warning letter was sent. We do see a little bit of like knuckle formation here, but again, removing all the canopy, as we discussed, shortens the life of the tree. It shortens the life of the tree of the long term because it stresses them out. So even if you keep seeing growth maybe for 5 years, you're still shortening the life of that tree significantly. So we're trying to plan urban forests for the future. It's not just about you and I sitting here. It's about, you know, our future generations enjoying the urban canopy, especially in the face of climate change, where, you know, the climate is getting worse and we may have to pass this along to future generations. And it could be, you know, shorter term, this tree could die sooner. And, you know, those resources, like we need to be able to plan for those resources. And we don't generally take topping and damaging trees into account when we're saying, oh, we need to plan to plant this many trees. So we want to preserve the trees we have so that we don't ultimately spend more resources trying to replant a tree before it's time. So again, this was the warning letter sent in 2018. Here, 2018, it was topped again in 2021 by the same people. And here's just a close-up. So for this reason, we issued the fine. We felt it was justified because a warning letter was sent. Yeah, and so that concludes 100 Cole.
Is the appellant
Okay.
present?
Excuse me, Mr. Reutman. We have a buff representative who would like to speak and say something, Mr. Brian Ong.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Brian, you should be able to speak.
Hi, yeah, so I'm manning the permit center right now, and a few people have called in about the web ID not working. So I'm trying to give everybody the correct, call them back and give them the correct ID. So I'm not exactly sure how you guys want to proceed. So you guys wait until the actual correct people join. So just want to give you guys a heads up that the web ID was incorrect.
Okay. Were you able to find the corrected ID to share?
Yeah, the corrected ID is on the website.
Okay. But the hearing announcement had it incorrect because
I'm not exactly sure what the hearing announcement says.
okay.
Yeah, because I don't understand because the I believe the website has the correct information, so I'm not sure what they're meaning. I'm trying to check it now.
So I mean, I joined through an announcement. So I was able to join through an announcement. I did not use the website. I believe I used the 100 Cole announcement to join.
I send you guys the ID that's on the website. So
Yeah, that's the correct one.
Do we think that Zoom is limiting?
The one person that is most likely in here, he gave me a different ID. I will type it in right now.
Could it be that this is a person who rescheduled and they're using their old invite?
Possibly, but then I think I received. I'm gonna have a few in voicemail, so I'm not exactly sure if there's more. So I'm gonna hop off and check these voicemails.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and I do have 3 other attendees who are in right now, and
Okay.
someone is raising their hand. I'm gonna allow them to speak. Northland S52, can you speak and tell us now? Go ahead. You should be able to unmute.
You're still muted.
Yeah, and I'm unable to unmute them. Northland S52, can you unmute your phone and speak to us? Or how about use the chat feature?
I think to unmute by phone was *6. Is that right?
He's no longer muted. There you go. I saw the mute. Northland S52.
And any of the callers who are calling in, please press *6 and it will unmute your phone. I did see your message in the chat. Yes, just press *6 and it should unmute you. Or you can go ahead and say what you wanted to say through the chat as well. And do either of the other callers want to say something? I'm allowing you to speak right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Who am I speaking with?
This is Paul Hirsch, Northland Ship 52. That's my. I'm the Sea Scout skipper of the Northland, so I have Northland 52 there. That's my ship's number.
Okay, so thank you. So you're calling for Uloa Street, is that correct?
That's correct, and I'm one of the people that Brian talked to about the ID being incorrect on the notice I was sent on January 7th of this year. And when he gave me the new ID, I was able to get in.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
So I
Okay.
apologize for being.
No, that's okay, that's okay. So thank you. We have not yet gotten to your case. That will be coming up next. So if you would just bear with us just a moment, please. I'm gonna see who else we have in attendance, okay? Thank you,
Sure,
Mr.
no problem.
Hirsch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on just a moment. Okay. And do we have the representative or the person from 484 9th Avenue present as well? Can you raise your hand or say something in the chat?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And Did we have anyone from 100 Cole Street present? Or how about 100 Dorado Terrace? The person that just spoke from 9th Street, is your phone number ending in 768 or 619?
I'm at 7-874.
Well, you don't have to tell me the whole number. Just does it end in 768?
Correct, correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you. So the caller who's calling in from the number ending in 619, what address are you representing?
2232 Yaloa.
Oh,
Okay, thank you so much.
okay, so you've joined twice.
Okay,
The
Joined
North,
twice.
I see Northland, S52, and the phone
and
number.
the phone number.
Oh, yeah, I logged in. Excuse me. I'm on a Zoom meeting. I can see your Zoom, but for some reason my headset
Okay.
didn't kick. I dialed in.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Reutman, what do you want to do from this point? So we have representatives from 2232 Uloa Street and from 9th Avenue, but not from the other two.
Sure, I think we should move to the second order for 2232 Lola, and then we can have the department make the presentation.
Okay. So we made a background presentation to explain the basis for these fines. So since the only thing, that's what people missed, and then they missed the first case, which nobody is here for. So we can just send the recording of the presentation and what the explanation was, maybe before we issued the decisions. Okay, so order 205933 2232 Lois Street. And so to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal pruning of one street tree at 2232 Lois Street. And the fine levied for illegal pruning is $9,200. And so normally, like Thomas Reutman, probably you've seen our fines be like the standard 2,000, but when we were re-evaluating our code, it determined we can actually appraise trees. And so what we did here was we appraised the tree like before it was topped, so we have the size. And so, the size really drives the value of a tree, as does the amount of living canopy. So we basically, like, the tree appraised for only like $1,200 after we appraised it, but due to the damage. And so we just subtracted the difference. So it's called diminishment value or depreciated. So basically, like, it kind of goes into this whole idea that every time you top a tree, you damage it permanently. You remove the photosynthetic abilities, and that's, like I said, sleep deprivation for a long time, or just for some sort of comparison with a human is, long-term stress eventually shortens your lifespan. So this is the tree as a full canopy, and it's like a healthy arbutus. And it is touching these service drops, which are low voltage. They're very much allowed to do this. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have a question about power lines, call PG&E. They'll be able to explain that to you. I was a vegetation management inspector for PG&E for a few years, and half my job was explaining to people what these lines are and like what the priority is for pruning on them. And the city will clear these if there's strain and abrasion, and if there isn't, they'll still kind of clear around them on a routine cycle. But this goes back to that slide about what's like a priority pruning and what's routine, and why we do these systematically. So we saw the tree. It had 100% of canopy removed. It has torn bark there, on that the remaining stem in the middle, and the other branch on the left, like it looks very much like a lot of indiscriminate pruning, 100% of the canopy removed, and very obviously not done with care with that torn limb. That limb is permanently damaged. This tree might be able to sprout back, but I don't, that amount of stress and the wounds that large, I think will eventually lead to decay. And we might see this tree succumb to the arbutus canker prematurely. Like some of them are, you'll see this with this species, they'll have like a black stain on the trunk. And that's a fungus that kills stressed out arbutus, and some are resistant, some aren't. And I think we think that they're more prone to this decay when they've been topped. And so to be consistent with enforcing our code and how we are now handling a lot of these cases, with knowing that the ability to appraise a higher value, we did appraise the diminishment value here. And so that's 2232 ULOA.
Thank you, Susan. I guess we can unmute Mr. Hirsch and you can give your testimony.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. Well, there's a few things here. Okay, there's another picture that does show the tree more recent, a couple of months ago, and I don't know what that lady was talking about low power. Now, there's two lines that run through that tree. One is Telco, which is low power. It's 48 volts DC. And the other one is the PG&E line, which is running at 220, which is not low voltage. Okay. And my concern there was not to damage a tree, but to bring the tree down where it could be better managed and taken care of at a lower level. The photo she shows where the bark is torn, I was not done preparing that tree where those two taller limbs should have come down, and then everything would have been sealed with tree tar to block off the areas. Okay, so my intent was not to damage the tree or kill the tree. I wanted a tree there, but I wanted to have it at a lower level. So when I got this notice over a year ago now, I stopped all work and let the tree go back to growing, which I did send another picture in. And so those two tall trunks there, or branches, are still there, but I was never able to complete it because of the notice you sent me. So I just backed off and didn't do any more work on a tree. So I don't know what else I can do right now. I mean, I'm willing to go put tree tar on there to seal the branches on, or if somebody wants to come out and take care of it. But like I say, my intent was not to kill the tree or permanently injure it. The other thing is I did send in a letter about why I did it. And I also asked if the tree could be replaced with another one, like what's up the street from where we live. There's a different kind of a tree. This tree has, in 16 years, you can see what it's grown to. And it's going to outgrow that spot, and that sidewalk's going to come apart. So I have several concerns here about where we go with it. I understand what you're saying about the fine, but like I say, there was no intent to kill the tree, harm the tree, or anything like that. I just stopped what I was doing because I didn't know to go any further. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'll put tree tar on there if you want me to. And you may say it's too late, but I think something is better than nothing.
We don't do that anymore because it prevents the tree from closing the wound. I just wanted to clarify that.
So, I mean, do you see the other picture I sent in?
I don't have it on hand now, but anything that you have sent in has been forwarded to the hearing officer. So I just don't have it available to show right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
So,
but-
I mean, that was my purpose, was to get it down out of the PG&E and the telco wires. This last windstorm we had, I think would have damaged the wires coming to the house, but you know, that's where I'm at. I guess it's, you know, how you want to go with it.
Just a follow-up question for the department is, I'm not sure given the fact that the city is responsible for maintaining trees, what's the next course of action for the tree in this condition? Will the city come and do whatever necessary pruning and training of what's left of that tree to get it in a better state for potential regrowth, or does it stay as is?
So because our tree pruning cycles are every 5 years or so, yeah, I would say for the first 5 years of growth, it would be fine for it to just not be touched. And then we would do that structural pruning at that time. So that's, you know, assuming the tree doesn't die. And if it dies, it's been taken down pretty low, so it wouldn't be a hazard. And we'd probably come do that on our routine cycle as well, and stump grind and all that. And, you know, we also do sidewalk repair on routine. So if there's like a path of travel uplift, you know, we will perpendicular that's like severe, and, you know, if it's near like a hospital or schools, we will address that. But you know, for regular uplift, that's also like on a cycle. So yeah, we restructure, basically we use our street tree SF cycle to restructure trees now. Because it really does take like that much time for a tree to kind of grow enough canopy to recover. So we're comfortable using our regular cycle for the restructuring.
Is there any option, as the homeowner, you know, suggested, an alternate tree that might be more suitable for the size of that basin for future growth? Is there any option for the city to work with the homeowner to provide a replacement tree as opposed to trying to retrain this one that's been hacked pretty far down?
Yeah. So yeah, we want to see what the regrowth looks like and see if it's even worth restructuring. And secondly, that's a pretty wide sidewalk. Now, I think that it was planted too close to that driveway. But if you shift that tree, you know, there is a lot of room to put a bigger basin. So just because the tree was put in a 3x3 basin when it was a 15-gallon tree, doesn't mean that it's too big for the space. We have sidewalks this wide with 30-inch diameter trees, and we are able to repair the sidewalk and expand the basin. So yes, our beautists, I would say, have like a wider, they have like a little bit more, like they put on more wood in their like roots than some trees, but all trees are going to put in most of their growth in the top 18 inches of the soil. So what I would say is like we'd shift the tree a little bit away from the driveway, and put in like a larger tree basin. And not all, yeah, I mean, most trees are gonna do some sort of sidewalk damage, but we have to replant trees and keep them. Like people don't see it, people see it as how it affects them, but we're managing the urban forest for everybody for the future. And like again, like I said, we're responsible for all of it. But yeah, I mean, if we have to repair that and the tree's been topped and the repair just makes it so that we have to like cut too many roots, that's when we'll like remove the tree. And like I said, that tree might not make it. And so we probably wouldn't replace it with that same species just because these are dying from that fungus I mentioned earlier.
So I'm just trying to understand what's the observation period to determine whether that tree is salvageable and retrainable, or whether it's a doomed tree that needs replacement. Because given the fine, it seems it would be preferable for the homeowner and Buff to be engaged in the decision about how that tree moves forward if if the money is put towards either training it or replacing it.
Mm-hmm.
If it were deemed that it had to come out and be replaced, I think something that a discussion with the homeowner would be prudent. So I'm not sure if there's a process for that, so that when the city decides this tree either needs to come out or it can be retrained, that there's a opportunity to engage with the homeowner.
Well, it's hard to know when a tree is going to decide to die based on how much it's been pruned. The droughts and storms have an impact. When you have a drought and you have root dieback and then you have a bunch of flooding, sometimes the trees will die like in that next growing season, like in the summer when it gets really hot. Sometimes they die like right away. Like we could drive by a tree like this and see that it had died a few months later. But it's hard to make like decision on whether or not to remove the tree, based on its structure and how large the diameter is, and how small the canopy is going to be. I might lean towards removal, but a lot of people think they can get their fine reduced by saying, fine, I'll just cut down the tree and give you a new one. Well, you have to purchase like a $300 tree. You have to stake it properly, which is like another $100 in material. And then you have to water and maintain it for 3 years. And that in itself is like another $1,500 of maintenance, pruning, and watering. So it's not cheap to replant a tree. And if it dies and if you don't get it to establish properly, you have to start all over again. So it's, you have to be in it for the 3 to 5 year period if you want to remove a tree and replace it to make up for your fine. So sometimes it's just not necessarily worth the homeowner taking it on. And it's kind of maybe more worth looking at the fine, determining like what's a fair reduction, assuming that the tree could die, assuming that the tree doesn't die. How much work is it going to take to restructure it, based on the fine amount? Like the depreciated value really takes into account the size of that tree. But that standard in Luffy, like the 2230, that accounts for us having to plant and water a new tree for 3 years. So yeah, I know it's not the most like black and white answer because it's very hard to predict when a tree is going to die based on topping. But it's already like pretty structurally compromised. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth holding on to and restructuring because it's probably going to have pretty weakly attached branches for the foreseeable future. It might be a removal candidate, but if we're doing our routine pruning and the canopy looks otherwise healthy, we might keep it just because going through the removal process is lengthy. We have to post the tree for 30 days. The public gets to protest. If the public isn't clear on the replacement feasibility, they may protest it. So.
Okay, but the fine amount is based on the value of the tree that's been lost.
Yeah. That's the basis for that fine.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else here in the?
Mr.
From the-
Reutman, Mr. Hirsch has his hand raised again. Did you want him to speak again or no?
Yeah, if you're addressing the comments that were made, if you can lend anything to that, please do, Mr. Hirsch.
Hear me? Okay. Yes, sir.
You'll need to mute it
Listen,
on your phone because you're calling in on the, whichever device you use, you need to mute the other or disconnect from the audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's still an echo. So right now, are you speaking to me through your computer?
Yes, I'm talking through the computer.
Okay, so if you can disconnect the telephone or
All right.
use the phone and disconnect the audio on the computer.
All right, I've disconnected the phone.
Okay, much better. Thank
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
No. Oh, man.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
We hear you.
We do hear you, Mr. Hirsch.
It sounds like he doesn't
No.
hear us.
If you want to write something in the chat,
Yeah, I'm sending him something now. Okay, we can send him dialogue again and talk with him
Yeah, I think
through
it'd be
the
good to move.
email. Yeah.
Let's move to the next order for 100 Dorado Street, order 205934.
And we do not have anyone here to represent that address, just so that you know.
Okay, why don't we skip this one for now and go to order 205935 for 484 9th Avenue, and we'll come back to Dorado.
okay. And I apologize because it says 934 on my PowerPoint. So an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for the illegal removal of one street tree adjacent to 484 9th Avenue. And the fine levied for the illegal removal is $2,230. So this is, we do the before and after photos thanks to Google Street View. They drive around the city like twice a year. So it is in declining condition. That's that second tree right there in the middle. It's not the two larger arbutus. And it looks like all the trees are planted at the same time. That was what the inspector thought. And so basically our inspector was driving by and just found that, they had hired a crew to just remove the tree without a permit. And as we stated earlier, based on Article 16, it's the responsibility of the Bureau to issue and tree removal permits. And I Googled this just the other day. If you Google, do I need a permit in San Francisco to remove a tree? The first thing that will come up is our website. And our website says you need a permit to remove a street tree. And not only that, it has our street tree SF link that says the city is responsible for the street trees. So again, if you call 311, we will see that message. And, and if you don't get a response to the service request, our website has our phone number, it has our email address. And then, 311 will write notes in there. So often you have to call and ask them, like, what are the notes? Why did they close their request? Because we write notes about why we close these requests. And that goes back to what I described earlier, which is a routine or an emergency. And a tree this small in decline is not an emergency. Like I said, we're the ISA certified arborists. All of us on our staff are tree risk assessment qualified. A small tree like that does not have the lever arm it takes to cause a major failure. It doesn't have the weight to cause a major impact. when you have declining canopy, you don't have the lever. So a lot of times a dead tree can just stand there. So a declining tree does not make an emergency, and we are the ones that make the determination because we have the training to do so. And this is why I say that you have to check. In a city like San Francisco, you're more than likely going to find that you have a regulation for anything you need to do. If you want to replace a window, you probably need to get a building permit. So this is why I'm saying, like, we get these, in 2017, like, it was in the newspaper, the Chronicle, the city takes over the maintenance of all the street trees. So you just don't take this on yourself. It may have been justified, it may have been completely dead. But we did not get to make that determination. So there's no real proof here that the tree was completely dead, that the tree wasn't removed for any bad reason. We need to be able to make this assessment to document, because these aren't just the trees belonging to the homeowner across. These belong to the city. They belong to the citizens of San Francisco. The citizens have deemed that these regulations be met. The Board of Supervisors have met, and they're strengthening these tree rules. They're not weakening them. And that's because the citizens demand that the canopy be preserved and maintained. So I'm just saying, you cannot take this into your own hands. We need accountability. We need documentation. And we need to be able to inspect it ourselves so that we can say, yes, the tree should be removed. We're going to grant this permit. But nobody had an opportunity to do that. The public didn't get an opportunity to know if it was removed legally. So for this reason, and because we had not seen the tree in person before, and because it's also a pretty small tree, it's likely it would have appraised for the same value as the standard fine of $22.30. So we issued the fine for illegal removal of $2,230, and a retroactive tree removal permit application is required, as well as a replacement tree. And that concludes the 9th Avenue.
Thank you, Susan. If the appellant is still on the call, you can unmute now and give your testimony.
Yes, hi, this is Petra. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Hello?
you. Sorry,
Okay.
can you state your full name just for the
Yes, Petra
record.
Stottmeister. Yeah, Petra Stottmeister.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Stottmaster. You should be able to speak.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I take full responsibility. I mean, I thought I was doing the right thing, and I'm willing to take the street free care class. Totally up for that. Yeah, I mean, I wrote and I sent in, and that's how I feel.
Sorry, do you have more testimony to?
I don't know what to say. I mean, yes, I removed the tree, and it was dead and dying, and I mean, I'm trying to maintain what is there in a good way. The cement was up. I am across from a school. I mean, so yeah, I did something wrong. I mean, I'm involved in this, so.
Can you speak a little more to the tree's condition?
Well, they were all planted at the same time, and my dad did water them faithfully, and and it was not. I mean, I don't know if you have those pictures of before and after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were all, like I said, planted at the same time, and that one just kept going down, down, down.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did have that storm, and I already knew I had to trim back because the one on the corner was starting to hit the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I wrote that the tenant came out that morning when he saw me, and he helped me move the branch that fell down from that middle tree. And, feel like they did a pretty good job on, David Hoffman said it looked pretty good, hit the tree trimming. Yes, and like I said, it was my responsibility. I did use somebody licensed and bonded. He did tell me to get a permit, and I said, okay, let's do it. And he said, it'll take 2 or 3 months. And I was like, what, 2 or 3 months? And so I just said, just do it. So I take responsibility for that, and I want to just go forward.
Okay, so you hired a contractor and they kind of, they were aware of the,
Yes, he told, and like I said, yeah, it's always it's hard to get somebody to get working, and I just said do it. I pressured him, so it's my responsibility.
okay, I appreciate your mea culpa on taking the responsibility, but trying to help, help you out here with understanding, your rationale, and if you I mean, maybe the department can speak to this, but does the tree trimming service bear a responsibility to follow the rules, or is it fall on the homeowner?
It'd be me.
Well,
I'm the one.
The ISA best management practices says that an arborist is supposed to follow like any municipal code, and like we say it's a third party sort of agreement. Like the fact that they caved and just said, okay, we'll just do it, like that's not okay. But yeah, at the same time, like they did inform the owner that the permit was required. In terms of like how we would address the fine, we always issue to the owner and call it like a third party decision. Like that, third, they can handle that. Because basically the way the code of ethics is written in the International Society of Arboriculture is that they're supposed to know when a municipality requires permits. So sometimes we've done things like we'll report them. And so if they try to renew their ISA certification, they can't get it renewed. They'll be put on suspension. So, but is this like a landscaping company or like an arboriculture company? Like, do they have an ISA certified arborist on staff? Because if it was an arborist, they may have refused. But if it's like a landscaping team, they may not even know about ISA. But we don't issue fines to contractors. We issue fines to the owners.
Yeah, now I guess what I'm curious about is if the homeowner's decision to say, just cut it down anyway was prompted by the thought that there'd be no action for 3 months from the city. Is that a realistic time frame that the city would take 3 months before being able to do anything about removing that tree, or would they be able to come out more quickly and do something had they been, I guess if the contractor hadn't told the homeowner?
Yeah, I called the city on the tree over 2 years ago as it started to decline, and then I call every year at around this time, around December, when it's like, okay, nobody's come, nothing's happened, what's going on? And then like this, you can see from the pictures, I also had the cement work done because the trees were pulling up the cement about 3 or 4 inches in one area, and
So we can inspect definitely in less than 3 months, but if we're not going to come. So yeah, and then you're talking about the tree removal hearing process. Like we can inspect quickly, but we have to post the tree if we're going to approve a tree, we have to post it for 30 days. So there's 1 month. And then it takes time to schedule trees for a hearing if they get protested. If they don't get protested, then it's just you issue a permit like shortly after the posting period ends. But that's why those permits have been taking 2 to 3 months, because it takes 30 days to post. And, it's going to take 2 to 3 months for a tree that isn't a hazard, because we're not in a hurry to remove trees that aren't deemed a hazard. And so if we're declining the request to remove this tree year after year, it's because it's not a priority.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
In the cement work, I mean,
Yeah, so it has to be like uplifted in the path of travel, perpendicular path of travel. Like curbside damage doesn't qualify for expedited repair because we've like most of our trip and fall issues have been like with path of travel uplift, and it's based on like the amount of uplift, and yeah, you're across from a school, so that would elevate the priority.
So I'm trying to frame up the whole scenario here, that it doesn't sound like the homeowner just went out with a chainsaw and cut it down. She had approached the city a couple times to at least take a look at the condition of the tree. Do you have any records of those calls and what the response from the city was 2 years and 1 year ago?
no, I had a number, and they gave me a tracking number. I remember it started with a 3, and then I had it. My mom lives there on premise there, and I guess she threw that paper away because I wanted to call back again. And then at the point when it was hitting, when we had the storms and it was hitting, I just had to go forward before before a window breaks up on top. I've already had one window break.
And she's not pruning because it, as I said, as you said, our inspector didn't find the pruning to be an issue. So people can prune without a permit, and as long as they don't break the rules in terms of ISA pruning. But in terms of like, this is like the removal we're talking about, so we can look at what our records show. And a lot of times, like, yeah, you might not get a direct phone call saying like, we looked at your tree and it's fine. Well, we will write notes in the inspection and then say like, this tree is not a priority removal right now. So that's probably why like nothing happened, because we looked at it and said that's definitely not urgent. It is in decline, but we know that's why, like, people say they don't know what happened, because you have to go back and like ask for what the notes were written with the 311 operator. And yeah, if it gets, they give you this number, but you can always ask based on the address. They can look it up based on that. I mean, I do think there's room for improvement on the 311 process, but we don't have time to go into that, and I don't have control over that process myself. So.
Right.
Okay.
But we can pull up those records and send them to you before you get the decision written.
Yeah, I'd like to just see if there's any correspondence prior to this that helps frame up, how we got to this.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that for both the last 2 cases.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you're willing to attend the tree class. Are those tree classes being offered right now, Susan?
We offer them when we get like a critical mass of attendees.
Okay, but it could be put on for a future attendance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that online or on person or?
It's online. Yeah, it would be another Zoom.
Or I have to have somebody help me because I couldn't figure that. I've never done that, so.
Yeah, we'll make sure everything's buttoned up.
Yep.
Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty, and we'll look into the records that we have, and we'll take that into account when we review this and make our determination.
Okay. All right. Did it, like I said, it's my responsibility, and I did it the wrong way, and I did it wrong. So.
But I presume after hearing the presentation, you understand for future pruning what the rules and process is.
Yes, and I'm obviously will learn more once I take the class. I missed the beginning part of. I missed it took me a while to get because the number was not the same number. I called the office and they gave me the right number.
You can send the recorded PowerPoint, but you now have like Daniel Hoffman and our email addresses, so definitely feel free to call directly too, instead of dealing with 301. That's perfectly fine as well.
You mean the
So
public
if you
works?
have any questions, yeah, if you have any questions, you can email us.
Okay, right. I'm more of a telephone person, but yeah.
You can call it, yeah. So, yeah, you can call
I'm
these.
still old school.
That's fine.
I actually live in the country. I actually plant a lot of trees.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You can call the inspector directly too. Like you don't have to just call our main line.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, I think I have David's other number too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I'm done, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, we'll follow up with you. Well, I'm not sure. We have your phone number. Do you have any other contact information that we can get
Well,
back to you
I
with?
mean, obviously, I did get I did get an email about the hearing. So you do have that on. Obviously, you have that because I
Okay.
emailed you. I was actually was going to handwrite a letter and do that because I don't know how to. Somebody help me with putting the pictures in and et cetera, et cetera.
We'll email you the decision.
Okay, then I just will wait for that to happen.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes, no further action needed on your part right now.
Okay, then there won't be a lien or anything on the house, or I'll wait till I get whatever notification.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for all your work too. I know it's a tough thing.
Sure. And again, thank you for being forthcoming with what happened. We don't always get that, so we appreciate it.
Well, I can tell you, I definitely cried when I got the letter. I was just looked at my mom. I'm like, I try the best, and it's like, wow. So I try to, put it away, and the girth of the trees are bigger now. The ones that have been that I have remaining, and yeah, like I said, I took upon that, and also got got the permit for the cement. I was shocked on how much that cost, but I had a friend who fell, and she was never the same. So my mom kept saying, the city is responsible. I'm like, yeah, Mom, but they're not going to do it. I don't want somebody to fall. And then look what happened to Ellen, and I am across from a school, and I never thought about that as something, but yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, and we'll get back to you shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Should I keep staying on and listening to everybody else, or?
You're welcome to stay. It's a public hearing, but there's no need. It won't change anything about your case.
All right. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. So I think we still have 466 8th Street.
So we did 484 9th. We have 100 Dorado Terrace.
Oh, okay.
They're not in attendance, but I emailed them.
Yeah.
And I asked, can you come to this hearing? And they've been responsive to that email before, so I don't know what happened. But we can just go through
Let's do the presentation, and then we'll see if anything gets sent in or responded in the in the next few hours today. Then we'll take it under review. Otherwise, we'll move forward with the decision.
We'll let you know which links, like if any of the links were actually not working, we'll let you know which cases those were.
Okay.
And compare who didn't attend.
Okay.
Okay, so it's an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for the illegal removal of one tree adjacent to 100 Dorado Terrace. And the fine levied for illegal removal is $2,230. So we haven't seen this tree ourselves in person. So we're limited to doing only just a standard fine if we haven't seen the tree. It's the little one on the left under that big cypress. And they were reported by a neighborhood advocate named Paul Lanzi, and he said he said that, he made it sound like the city was his friend, but we inspect these reports like no matter what. But it can feel like the inspectors are your friends when you're getting responsiveness. So, he told the owners, like, my friend works for the city and they're going to issue you a big fine. And, I had a talk with the owner here, and she explained, like, I really thought that this is my private property. I just bought this house, and this is, she told me that this is private. And I was like, well, no, and you should always check. Like, so this is where the right of way ends. It's 8 feet. So, you go to the curb and you follow along all the way to the wall is where the right of way, and that X is where the tree was. I'm not quite sure why they removed the tree, but I did run into them in person and had to explain that this is the right of way and that I'd be issuing a fine. So it's a street tree. And again, here's a diagram of a public right of way. The tree was where that yellow line was. And Dorado Terrace, the far right, so you can measure the whole length of the property and then the depth of the right of way and kind of find out where the property line is based on those assessor's maps there. You can see that the length of the property is 35.6 feet. So you can kind of start at the property line if you're unclear or you're not sure if the fence is actually within the property line. Anyway, so we determined that the tree is in the public right of way. And to be consistent to how we handle these cases, we issued the fine for illegal removal. And she's required to submit a retroactive removal permit. And we're going to look into if she can plant a new replacement tree, something small or shade tolerant. But it is under the canopy of the cypress, so I'm not quite sure if it's that good of an idea here. Yeah.
Do we know anything about that tree, or it's only what we can see from the street view?
It's only what we can see from the street view, and then it was reported to us as it was getting illegally removed.
Okay, so the tree was being removed, and then someone that saw it called, and then when the
Yeah.
city came out to inspect, they just found the tree stump.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And this one, there's no appellant in this hearing, right? Was there anything submitted from the appellant other than the request to have it heard?
Yeah, just the appeal letter.
Okay.
Just they didn't know. Actually, and when I spoke to them on site, they're just like, we really didn't know. Like, this looks like, and like the previous owner was like, this is your property. So they had no idea. Is from what my understanding. I mean, again, you should always check.
Yeah. Is the person that raised the initial objection or alerted the city, are they in the hearing, or did they
They didn't
submit
receive
a
an
letter, or no testimony there?
No, they didn't. They just submitted the 3-in-1 request. Like, tree's getting illegally removed.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think I understand this one pretty well, but I think we'll hold out on making the determination for a little while in case the homeowner had some technical problems getting in the meeting or submit something later on today or tomorrow with some, some testimony that helps their cause. But all you have from a conversation with them is that they're new homeowners, and they were led to believe by the previous owners that it was their property and therefore their right and responsibility on that tree.
Right.
Okay. All right. I think if there's no one else in attendance, then we can close this order. And does that cover all the orders, or is there still
No,
the
that's
need to go back to the first one to speak with?
That covers all of the orders,
Okay.
and there are no more attendees at this moment.
Okay, then I think I'll make the closing remarks that we'll make our determinations and forward them to the Bureau, to the director to make final determinations, and then the appellants will be notified of the determination. And with that, we'll close this hearing. Thank you.